I'd like to introduce our speakers for the next panel, which I'm going to be moderating. First off, we have Fraser Cain, the publisher of Universe Today and the co-host of Astronomy Cast podcast. We have Dr. Yakov, an astrophysicist at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Kirsten Banks, an astrophysicist at, a science communicator and galactic archaeologist at the University of New South Wales. Awesome title. Dr. Héloïse Stevance, a science communicator and astrophysicist at the University of Auckland. And of course, PhD candidate in particle cosmology, Sophia Gad-Nasr from UC Irvine. Thank you all so much for being here. So I wanted to ask you all a few questions regarding how science can be made more accessible. I mean, there's a huge jump between the lab and the science that's done in academia and, you know, the information that actually gets passed down to the general public. So Fraser, if it's okay, I wanted to start with you. I know that you've been in this industry a long time. What do you think has changed since you first started Universe Today? What has changed in the world of science communication as you see it?
I think the biggest thing is that like the places where we used to get our news, like the NASA's and the research institutions and even the scientists themselves are discovering that they're able to reach out directly with the audience and connect with them and share the work they do. NASA is my biggest competitor and they produce better videos, better text, and they have amazing podcasts and all kinds of stuff. And they have the rockets. So I think our role is to provide aggregation and analysis and to try to bring other sort of integration to people that maybe they wouldn't get directly from any of the one official platform. So I think that's the biggest difference. In the olden days, people thought they needed the media. And now they don't. They now understand they don't need the media and they can communicate directly. And so then it makes our job as media more complicated, and we have to bring a higher game.
Okay, thank you, Yakov. Next question for you. I mean, with all of the media that we're trying to bring, like Fraser said, practically competing with NASA in order to get this information out there. But NASA and the large majority of the information that's out there is being produced in English. So being an astrophysicist and part-time science communicator and astrophotographer, let's just put it out there, here in Israel, do you think that non-native English speakers have somewhat of a harder time accessing reliable information online or in general?
Yeah, Kovi, hi. Thank you so much for having me here. I definitely do, although I can only attest to Hebrew speakers, of course, and mostly to the fields that I'm familiar with, physics and astronomy. There's just much less quality material in Hebrew, which is not very surprising given the number of Hebrew speakers around the world. And I think also that people in Israel may sometimes tend to dismiss this being a problem since English proficiency is fairly high in Israel. And if you know English, then it's definitely not a problem since there's a lot of great material in English. However, there are specific groups like young children or more senior people, for example, who are not able to process information that is not in Hebrew, or at least not as comfortably and easily so. Just think about the people who read Wikipedia in Hebrew and how many of these will go to the English page if the Hebrew is not detailed enough. Some will, but many won't. So I think it's absolutely crucial to create popular science content in Hebrew. And I think it's happening as there are more and more individuals who are both passionate about science and about sharing it with their fellow Hebrew speakers through a variety of means like blogs, Facebook pages, videos, etc. There are also organizations that do this now, with Little Big Science being a great example, which we'll hear more about in the next panel, I guess. Personally, I think one front to make progress on this is updates from the front lines of research, from the actual labs, bringing the most recent and exciting discoveries to the people. And I think this is, in one sense, it's more challenging because it requires usually the people actually doing the science to do so. But it also has some opportunities because many agencies and institutions have these press releases already written and accompanied by this great material. And you just have to translate into Hebrew.
I mean, you touched on a few really important points there, Yakov. Thank you. I mean, I guess I want to ask Kirsten first. I want to ask you a question, then afterwards ask Sophia. But Kirsten, on that topic of language barriers. And I know, for example, with Wikipedia pages existing in Hebrew, there are a lot of the times with my students here in Israel that, I can look up a page and all the information is there in an accessible way for me, but for my students, a lot of these pages don't exist. Do you feel like there are some communities, from your experience in Australia, some communities that are kind of left behind when science communication happens mostly online?
Absolutely. And a great example of that is this pandemic that we're going through right now, and how important the science and the communication of the science of the vaccine and there's just the science of just going and getting tested has been a real struggle in Australia for the minority communities that don't always speak English as their first language. So it's really important to be able to make our science communication accessible to everyone, because we all need to understand science, move forward in this world. Unfortunately, I don't know a second language. I learned a little bit of Italian in high school, but I definitely haven't retained that. So I feel a bit not good enough when it comes to this global science communication, but we all do the best that we can. And that's why having people from all around the world who know different languages coming together to promote science and to communicate science is so, so important.
It's really, really true. And that's one of the reasons why I'm glad to have kind of brought together a group of people for this event who come from different places in the world to hear exactly these opinions. So Sophia, a question to you, and then afterwards we'll go to Héloïse. On the topic of material that's not really communicated properly, I mean, your field is one that I find one of the most fascinating fields in astrophysics. I mean, if I'm allowed to say that cosmology is part of astrophysics without too many people getting upset. But I wanted to ask you, do you feel like there are some issues where science communication has become mainstream in certain fields, but not necessarily other fields?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question. I find that, like, as you had just mentioned, cosmology and the universe is something that will obviously get a lot of attention because it's amazing. I mean, I don't need to say much. Like, just if you look up at the universe, there's just so much, there's so much mystery. I do find, for example, in the field of physics, that in science communication, for example, condensed matter will get left out. And there's a lot of cool stuff that we can learn about there. Like, that's kind of where partly where sort of quantum computing and stuff like that lies. It goes in that direction. And so quantum computing gets a little bit of it, but then the actual electronics part, which is where, some of the stuff that condensed matter can give you, we don't get to learn about that much because it's not pretty. I guess it's not instantly appealing. And so people might lose that part of it. But I think that there are just a lot of people from all fields now starting to come together and start bringing the science to the public in a way that's easier to understand. So I think we're moving in the right direction.
I think you're right. And Héloïse, this is a question for you. I think that as part of moving in the right direction and trying to get more people involved and to see the beauty of science, I wanted to ask you something about TikTok and the place that TikTok has. And Kirsten, if you have a comment about this afterwards, feel free to chime in, because I know that you have an opinion on this. But I'm asking you this in the context of a video from several months back, if you recall, of a young woman who had asked a question on TikTok, totally innocently just asking about math, because it was just legitimately something that she didn't understand. So if you wanted to comment on that and the importance of TikTok as you see it. Héloïse. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so that's a very good point, and it's a very good exemplification of why we need more scientists on platforms that are not necessarily like for scientists, that are for everyone, because this young girl was asking very good questions that don't necessarily have actual answers, because they were so basic in a way, so fundamental is the better word for it, that not everyone agrees, like, where does maths come from? Is it something you discover? Is it something that you invent? These are kind of philosophical questions. And people were trashing her in the comments because, internalized misogyny, and she was putting on her makeup, and she's a young teenage woman. So it was really good to be able to chime in and be like, hey, I'm a scientist and I don't know all of the answers to all of these questions, but here is something to put you, on the right track and to start asking more questions. I think it's really good when we have personalities like we have in this panel and beyond, on Twitter, on TikTok, on other forms of social media that can show not just the science, but the humans behind the science and really connect with people, because essentially we're all people and we need to connect on that basis as well.
You're
I totally agree.
Right. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, just chiming in, because like that moment on social media last year, I guess, was really pinnacle for showing that. And it really annoys me, and I'm so glad that you answered her, Héloïse, because your answer was so fantastic, and because it really shows how science works, that we don't always know the answer. But this also goes to show that there are no stupid questions. There are no dumb questions, no matter what the gatekeepers think, no matter what the gatekeepers want to tell you is a good question or a bad question, because often these dumb questions are the most interesting questions. Like, where does maths come from? Even after all of that conversation, I still don't know where maths comes from, but I know it's useful.
The people trashing her did not know the answers to her questions. That's for sure. I can promise you that.
Exactly.
They were just quantum bros trying to sound clever. That was it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I was trying to think that if we had to, ask a bunch of chads on the internet who are just, harassing this poor young woman, like if they know the axioms that define a field of numbers, they'd be like just grunting at you. They have no idea really. And I think
What's
that there's
an axiom?
An axiom. I don't know. I forgot the moment I walked out of that exam. I wanted to ask Fraser on the topic of the way that science appears in social media. When you see a sensationalized headline, otherwise known as clickbait, about a science-related topic, how does that make you feel? What's your gut reaction to that?
They did a better job than me. I could have clickbaited a little harder, I think. No, the dirty secret of media, the dirty secret of publishing, etc., is that the title is half of the effort of the article, and the other half is the actual article itself. It sucks, but if people aren't going to come in and read your stories, then there's no point to write them in the first place. So you have to walk that line. And in fact, that's the job that I do at Universe Today. If there's one job that I won't let anybody else touch, it's that I make all the titles for the whole website. And the reason is because you have to balance this along this knife's edge. You have to write something that's very compelling, that makes people go, wow, that's kind of cool. I understand what the news is, but also not be factually, scientifically incorrect. And so you have to sort of walk that line. So I think that in the beginning, people definitely lean in towards the clickbaity side, but I think if you want to stick around for a long period of time, then you have to lean more towards being scientifically accurate and then as compelling as you can be.
I definitely hear what you're saying, and I think that it's a dilemma that every science communicator and science enthusiast and scientist kind of comes up against, when they think, I want people to click on this and I want people to engage so that they can learn the real science, and they kind of have to just twist and kind of lean into the clickbait just that small amount so that it actually can get out there. Yakov, I wanted to ask you, and Sophia, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts as well. Do you feel like maybe there needs to be some kind of focus on science communication in academia to get more people who might have a wider range of skills in actually jumping through that hoop that Fraser spoke about?
Yeah, I think this is a difficult question. So I think science communication is definitely getting more attention in academia, but we also need more. I think there are many more activities in recent years with both professors and students giving talks and engaging with people. I think there's also more understanding and cooperation from management, allocating resources and people. But I think we definitely still have some way to go. I think it's important to recognize that outreach is an essential mission for the people who are actually doing the science. and try to address it on several different fronts. We have to introduce students to it pretty early and make it okay for them to dedicate some of their time to it, if they want to, of course. Second, I think we should make logistics easy for organizing events, for example, rather than difficult and tedious. And third, I think a person who is responsible for outreach in each academic unit is very helpful, be they a student or not. It's very helpful for different reasons. Responsibility, continuance of effort, and overview and management, and again, making logistics easier.
Those are some good points. Sophia, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so everything Yakov said, definitely. Additionally, I think that we would benefit from having like a science communication course for those students who want to do this, because, for example, learning how to sensationalize a headline without going too far. These are things that are important. How I can take, a topic that is so full of like math and then turn it into just take the concepts out and show that to the public, because that's the stuff that people really want to learn about. And it's a skill that you have to build. It's not easy. It's not easy to take the jargon and all the stuff that like the type of language that you're used to speaking among your colleagues. It's not easy to just take that and translate it to regular language. And so I think we would definitely benefit from having more programs and, even possibly like courses available for students who are interested in that.
For sure.
So something I wanted to chime in with as well is something that's not as discussed, I feel, especially within universities about this. It's the technical effort that it takes to make good content for the internet and for wide audiences. And it's just like Sophia said, it's, the skill to translate something that's really difficult and give people, some sort of instinct, some sort of concept of what this means. And that's really difficult to do that without jargon and to do that for audiences that are not your colleagues. But even if you can already do that, if you're making videos, if you're making podcasts, if you're streaming, that's an array of technical skills and of time and effort, if you're editing, that takes away from your academic progress. And we have to recognize that. If we want more scientists to actually put in time and effort into the community, because that's what we need to do to communicate and to connect with the community, it needs to be recognized by universities, it needs to be recognized by funding bodies, and we need to be given like collaborations with people who do media, who do editing, who do video, who can really collaborate to bring that extra skill we don't necessarily have time to develop, or we just don't have time to edit a video in the middle of the week because we have science to do. So I think that's something we should really emphasize. It's partnering media and scientists within universities so that we can reach more people.
I think that if I nodded as hard as I feel like I agree with you, I would actually do some serious damage to my head. I can't tell you enough how much I relate to that. My frustration, over the course of my degree, which I am in the 6th and final year of, there's been so many issues along the way and personal issues as well. But the reality is that doing science communication work alongside my degree is something that I've felt has been a challenge, and something that I've even had members of the senior faculty in the university say, well, maybe you should just, stick to journalism or stick to that kind of work. Maybe those are the cards that God gave you. But I think that you're 100% right, that it needs to be something that's understood as a key important part, that students, they can't just, do the degree and then go to work, or do the degree and then continue in academia. There needs to be kind of a window, as Kirsten might say, a diamond window or an arch window into the world of academia for those outside. And just following on from that and from what you were saying, Héloïse, about all these different platforms and different forms of media that are being used, I wanted to ask you, Fraser, and I know Kirsten as well, this is something that is close to your heart. What do you feel about this kind of resurgence of the audio format of podcasts? Why is it that we're seeing this pop up again? I know, Fraser, you have your astronomy cast with Dr. Pamela Gay, and Kirsten, you also have an amazing podcast that everybody should listen to called The Scientists.
I don't think podcasting ever went away. I mean, I think my perspective is that it was invented like almost 20 years ago, maybe 16 years ago, I think. And it's just gone up and up and up. It's had points where really key podcasts have come out that have brought a lot of new people into the field, but it's kind of inevitable. Like it's like listening to radio, but on your schedule. Like imagine if people like opened up books in front of you and they just turned the pages, and then if you turned away, they just kept turning pages, right? Like no other media should work this way. So podcasts are just a natural extension of this, and so it just feels like a normal thing.
Kirsten, anything to add?
I think the thing I like most about podcasts is that while I am a proponent for very short form media with TikTok, is that you have the ability and the flexibility to really disseminate the science and really go into detail, and people can stop, pause whenever they want. They can come back. They can either listen to 5 minutes and then feel like they're done with it, which makes me sad, but that's fine. Consume the content how you want to. And I think podcasts really give you that flexibility to consume the content when you want to, for how long you want to as well.
That's so true. It really is an amazing format. That Fraser, you're right that it never really went away. It kind of made this smooth, continuous transition from being something that you listen to in your car, maybe, to something that now people are listening to on their phones.
I think one additional note is that the thing that I've been finding is that people have a lot more interest in much longer, in-depth, very in the weeds kind of episodes. So I find if I'll do a 2-hour interview with somebody about a very specific kind of cosmology, people will eat that up. They really like it. So I think that what you're getting is people are realizing that we don't have to be completely generic and have to talk down to everybody. Instead, we can really drill down on a topic that people are excited. A smaller group of people are really excited about. I listened to a machine learning podcast, and it's like 3 hours long and absolutely fascinating. And that's the kind of stuff that I think there's actually not enough of in this world, is long, really nerdy, really down the rabbit hole kinds of conversations. So they don't have to be highly polished. They just have to be what a certain group of people really want to hear.
I think you definitely have a point there. And I mean, a podcast that I'd love to give a shout out to, even though they're not in the conference tonight, is Astro Soundbites. For those who aren't familiar, there's a website called Astrobytes where they take new papers that are coming out of the world of astrophysics, and they summarize them in kind of short, very accessible articles. And Astro Soundbites is basically the same idea, but it's 3 graduate students who are actually doing that same thing and turning it into a podcast. And so recently they had a series, I think, of 3 episodes where they did exactly what you're describing. They selected a target, and it was machine learning and algorithms within the field of astrophysics. And they just spoke only about that for 3 episodes. And I guess it's a quality over quantity thing, where they can say, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do it properly, we're going to get into the weeds and ask the questions and ask, jumping back to what we were talking about before, Héloïse, asking questions that some people might consider to be dumb questions, but there really are no dumb questions. I feel like people misconstrue the fine line between, I guess, stupidity and ignorance. And there are very few stupid people in the world. I think a lot of people are just ignorant because they haven't been exposed to certain ideas. And I really think that's an important role for us as science communicators, is to help people gain access to these ideas in an accessible way. Okay, I wanted to ask if each of you now could, in 60 seconds, summarize what project you're most excited for. Now, this could be a project that you have that's up and coming that you want to share with people. It could also be something that is a pipe dream for you guys and you want to get there, but you're not actually sure if it's going to happen anytime soon. So, Kirsten, let's start with you, and then we'll do Yakov after that.
Cool. So I think my favorite thing that I'm excited for is my PhD. So I'm 1 year into my PhD right now. I've got 3 more years left to go. So in about 3.5 to 4 years time, I don't know how long it will be since from submitting my thesis to becoming Dr. Kirsten Banks, but eventually I will be Dr. Kirsten Banks, or maybe I might change my Twitter profile to Dr. Astro Kirsten. We'll see. But I'm really excited for what science I have in front of me and the research that I have in front of me, because the main goal that I'm personally looking forward to in this big 4-year-long journey is to create an accurate 3D map of our galaxy to try and understand more about the history and formation of the Milky Way and other galaxies and extend that out to other galaxies in the entire universe. So that's a pretty exciting moment for me. That's what I'm looking forward to most.
That's incredibly exciting, and I really hope that you can find a way to fit your title as Galactic Archaeologist in that new Twitter handle that you end up picking up. Yakov, anything that you want to share with us as something that you have in the works or something that you'd like to see happen?
Yeah, so this is not anywhere near being in the works, but it's kind of a fantasy that I've been having for a while now. And so I think it's pretty simple, and probably somebody's thought about this before, but what I really wanted to do was buy a van and put a telescope or a few in it and just drive around Israel and show people the moon and Jupiter and Saturn, and get to, we've been doing this in Tel Aviv with a telescope on the sidewalk for a while, and in the last few years in Jerusalem too, of course, you know about that. But I would really like to get to places far up north in Israel and in the south where people didn't maybe have the chance to try that. So maybe if one day I'll be recruiting or asking for donations for an Astrovan, which is a name that was suggested by my wife, you'll hear about this.
Astrovan 2025. I'm excited for it. All right, Héloïse.
Right, so if we're sharing fantasies, I'm going to share mine. I really want to, and don't steal this idea, it's my idea. I really want to write a book called It's Never Aliens. I don't know if I can swear, so I'm not going to do that. Because I'm on a mild crusade against the clickbaity people who use aliens everywhere. And if you don't know, I study some of the most extreme objects in the universe. So like neutron stars, black holes, supernovae, massive stars. And like for some reason, people try to shoehorn aliens into everything. And it drives me crazy because frankly, the most likely answer is so much more interesting. The universe is so much more creative than clickbait. And I want to write a book that basically debunks all of these areas where people have tried to shoehorn aliens for no reason and actually tell people about the awesomeness of the universe and how creative it gets.
Oh, that's amazing. No, Ron, it couldn't be aliens. I was actually
maybe someday, but not for these, I can tell you that.
I was actually in a talk the other day that was being given by Brian Metzger about fast radio bursts, FRBs. And he had a bunch of pictures up everywhere. And each picture was like, could it be this model? Could it be supernovae? Could it be neutron star mergers? Could it be aliens? And each one is like, no, time scale is wrong. And it wouldn't be bright enough and this and that. And then over the aliens, like, no, it's never aliens.
It's just every time there's a question, it's like people try to shoehorn aliens. There's someone who at Harvard called Avi Loeb, who's very well known for trying to shoehorn aliens into everything, including FRBs. Although it's not his field, I'll say that. And he was trying to push that for Oumuamua, and I was like, that's very weird. Why would you do that? And then I realized it was like 6 months ago that he has a book. He has a book that just come out about just trying to explain it with aliens. So yes, for capitalism and science, please don't mix the two.
It's a fine line indeed. It's a fine line indeed between trying to draw people into science and other things. Okay, Fraser.
I'm really excited about the Vera Rubin telescope. That's like, it's all I can think about.
That is definitely 60 seconds or less. What objects are you most excited for us to see with the
I want to know what the universe is doing when we weren't looking, and Vera Rubin will tell us. So I think if there's one, and then I'm excited about the extremely large telescope. And I'm also excited about the future release from Gaia and James Webb, which is totally going to launch.
Yeah, the James Webb Space Telescope is definitely launching.
Yeah, but the one that I'm just like, and I am not like new, like I've been just fanboying over Vera Rubin telescope for a decade now. I'm so excited about this observatory. So yeah, that's what I have no involvement, they're not paying me to market them. I just cannot wait for this telescope to show up and start doing some incredible science.
I'm very excited for it too. Okay, Sophia.
Okay, so I have two things. One is my PhD. So I'm in my 4th year, and I'm starting to. I've been studying dark matter. So if you know me on social media, you'll know me by my dark matter tweets and things that I talk about. But we've thrown in black holes as well, and so I'm going to be using dark matter to explain supermassive black holes. And these are basically the giant black holes that we have in the center of every large galaxy, including our own, which we can't really explain in the same way that you can explain like a stellar mass black hole, which just, it's basically the death of the star, and, you're left with this black hole. But one that's a billion times the mass of the sun, not so much. And then on the other side, my science communication side, because both things are very important to me, I'm definitely doing videos. I want to host a TV show, obviously, about space, because I love talking about this stuff. Cool, and that's kind of one thing that I'm working on as well, is a little series with a friend of mine, and so stay tuned for that.
Wow, amazing. Sorry, I lost you guys there for a second, but I think that having all of you guys here, all of you guys and girls here, and talking about these topics, I think is really something important for us to keep doing. And we've been running behind schedule tonight. We've had a couple of technical difficulties along the way, and I wish that we could keep talking about this forever. But I'm going to have to wrap it up now. So if there are any last messages that you all have about places where people can find you online, or famous last words that you want to give to wrap up this panel session, let's do in the reverse order that we just did. So Sophia, Fraser, Héloïse, Yakov, and Kirsten. Hope I got that right.
Okay, so for me, you can find me at Astroparticle everywhere, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. I'm even on TikTok. Less active there at the moment because school is what it is, and so I have to put that first. But you can catch me there, and since someone did, since Fraser mentioned Vera Rubin, and she's literally like my favorite astronomer ever, because she's the reason why I do what I do. I want to leave you with a quote from her, and it goes like this. Okay. Don't shoot for the stars. We already know what's there. Aim for the space in between, because that's where the real mystery lies. And that is why I study dark matter. And that is why I study dark matter part is not the quote.
I feel like we should just end the entire event right there and then. Wow. Amazing. Fraser.
Well, you can find me at universetoday.com and Universe Today on all the things, except TikTok. I'm clearly behind the times on that one. And of course, you can listen to Astronomy Cast, where I have been getting an education in astronomy from Dr. Pamela Gay for the last 15 years. So you should definitely check that out.
Amazing. I also haven't yet crossed to the dark side of TikTok yet, but I'm getting close. Héloïse.
I'm muting myself, sorry. You can find me at Sidonahi. Sorry that it's so hard to pronounce and write. I found that name when I was a teenager and didn't want people to find me, which is very awkward these days. Both on Twitter and TikTok and other places, I'm sure. And hfstevens.com. So H for Héloïse, F for Fanny, my real name, and Stevens, my name.com. For most of everything, you can find my free graphics, my science communication there. And if you need me to talk to a school or an event that you're doing, you'll find my email address there as well. If you want me for an event like that, I am free. I just want to talk to people.
Thank you so much, Yakov.
You should have ended with me. I don't think you can find me online. So maybe on the street with a telescope and one day in the Astrovan, if all goes well.
So Astrovan 2020 and Dr. Faerman on Archive for those who are looking for papers on Archive. Okay, great. And
it was really great being here. Thank you for having me.
Kirsten,
and I guess that leaves me.
Yes.
So you can find me at things are backwards. Astro Kirsten right there. You can find me at Astro Kirsten on all the social medias. Twitter and TikTok is where I'm most active. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook too, but don't really do much on those two. But if you like short, fun content about space and science, follow me at Astro Kirsten on TikTok and Twitter, and I'll see you there.
Amazing. Thank you, Kirsten. And thank you to all of you. This has been wonderful. I wish we could do this for longer, but unfortunately we're limited on time. So I'm going to have to let you go. Thank you again for taking the time out to participate in Ramon SciComm 2021.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you all.